Hey everyone, John Chappell again, and this is our second PowerPoint covering the Nixon administration. And in this PowerPoint, I'm going to give kind of a broad overview of the Nixon administration's foreign policy. So let's jump in. Because we got behind in our class, we didn't really go into the origins and development of the Vietnam War. So you're reading just about briefly about it this week with the Nixon administration, but I am having you watch his silent majority speech as a discussion exercise this week, and that speech pertains directly to the Vietnam War. It was the main foreign policy issue that Nixon inherited. By 1969, when Nixon was sworn into office, the Vietnam War had become unpopular, and the majority of the American public, Nixon included, was seeking a way out. But how exactly to do that became the political issue that Nixon sought to address and really exploit with his silent majority speech. He had talked about the war somewhat during the presidential campaign of 1968, but said he had a plan to end it, never really explained how that would work. And that's what he outlined in his silent majority speech in 1969. So you'll be watching that and doing a discussion exercise for that online in this week's class. The clip that you'll watch of Nixon's silent majority speech is just about a minute long, and as I mentioned, you have some discussion prompts that you'll engage in response to that, but public response to it was overwhelmingly positive. Unfortunately, it encouraged Nixon to expand the war in Vietnam right after he had told Americans that he was going to scale back American involvement. So he began reducing the number of troops, but also sent American forces into the neighboring country of Cambodia. Very unpopular move that sparked demonstrations and protests, particularly on college campuses across the country. This led to tragedy at Kent State University in May of 1970. This was almost the end of the semester for students at Kent State and other colleges. This is an incident that has never really been explained despite several official investigations, but a group of National Guardsmen who had been sent to the campus by the governor of Ohio without warning, opened fire on students after the end of an anti-war rally kind of in the quad area of the Kent State campus. This was on May 4th, 1970. So a group of guardsmen had been at the edge of the student rally and had kind of confronted students and then marched away. And they got to this hill and, as I said, just suddenly turned around and opened fire. 4 students were killed. You see the 4 killed here, 9 wounded. And this was just an awful event. Allison Krauss, one of the young women killed, was literally just exiting a building. She was an art major and had just given her semester-ending portfolio presentation. And I'm sure never even knew what happened. She was just hit and killed instantly. But it was a shocking event for Americans and led to student and faculty protests across the country. You see this other photograph on this slide, one of the most famous photographs showing one of the victims, Jeffrey Miller, dead on the ground with a young woman whose name was Marianne Del Vecchio, who actually, you see her kneeling there over Jeffrey Miller, distraught. She was not even a student. She was a teenage runaway, actually, who was living with friends who were attending Kent State, but her parents didn't even have any idea where she was until they saw this picture. So, as I mentioned, students and faculty organized strikes and teach-ins across the country in reaction to Kent State, including here at Webster College, as it was known then. And tragic events at Kent State inspired singer-songwriter Neil Young to compose a song called Ohio, which was quickly recorded and released as a single by the popular rock group Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. So for quite some time, the song, which you still hear a lot in oldies rotation, was only available as a single. Eventually it appeared on an album that came out later, but they wanted to get it out quickly as a form really of musical commentary on what had happened. The Nixon administration finally ends direct American involvement in the Vietnam War in January of 1973. But Nixon's policy of pursuing an end to the war in a way that didn't look like a defeat extended the war unnecessarily for several more years. Nixon was a president who paid a great deal of attention to foreign policy. It wasn't like John Kennedy, where he tended to favor it over domestic policy, because as we know from the other PowerPoint, the Nixon administration, as I outlined, had some very important achievements in domestic policy. Foreign policy was an interest of Richard Nixon, and he was determined to shape and control foreign policy from the White House. And the Nixon administration marks an important change because it marks a tremendous increase in the prominence of a cabinet role national security advisor, which had been around since the Truman administration, but Nixon elevated it far greater visibility and importance by choosing Henry Kissinger, who had taught history and international relations at Harvard, as his national security advisor, and this was who Nixon worked with. The person he picked to be Secretary of State was a guy that he felt that he could easily dominate, and he did, and he deliberately picked him for that reason, and the Nixon administration tended to ignore the State Department. There was primarily Nixon and Kissinger working together, often very secretively, to determine the direction of American foreign policy during the Nixon years. Two major initiatives that Nixon pursued that I want to talk about. One, détente, this French term meaning an easing of relations with the Soviet Union. And you see Nixon in this photograph with Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev. This was a very popular policy in both the United States and the Soviet Union. It included just a general effort to improve communications, relationship. There were a series of trade deals. The Soviet Union had a series of disastrous wheat harvests in the 70s. And so one example is the Nixon administration concluded a series of deals where a large degree of American wheat was exported to the Soviet Union. It was very popular with American farmers. I mentioned arms control being a component of this, and in 1972, Nixon and Brezhnev reached an agreement for the ABM Treaty, which was the first to place limits on particular categories of nuclear weapons. And we're going to see later on how the Reagan administration built upon this agreement and expanded it. The other major foreign policy initiative undertaken by Richard Nixon and his administration was to visit China. And this may not sound like a big deal, but if you look at the map that I have on this slide, you see off the coast of China the island of Taiwan. After World War II, China had undergone a political revolution, actually several years of civil war, a struggle between communists in China and the nationalist forces in China, which ended in 1949 with the communists gaining control of mainland China and the nationalist movement being forced offshore to the island of Taiwan. From that point on, the United States only officially recognized the nationalist government on Taiwan. We recognized that as the official government of China, and in a way kind of spent decades pretending that communist China didn't exist. Through the 40s, 50s, even into the 1960s, Americans used the term Red China to refer to mainland China. So, one of the things that Nixon and Kissinger believed is that the time had come to open a dialogue and take the steps toward establishing a regular diplomatic relationship with China. And this is what they started. And it was going to involve a visit by Richard Nixon to China itself. So this was done by surprise, which Nixon and Kissinger loved to do. First, there had been some preliminary exchanges. An American ping pong team did a tour of China, and then Nixon himself came in 1972. And as I note here, it's the first American president to visit China since Ulysses Grant back in 1878. It was fascinating. This was all televised. Many Americans had never seen televised images from China. I can remember my elementary school teachers bringing TVs into the room so we could watch this, and these scenes of Nixon doing things like walking on the Great Wall were really astounding, plus the fact that he met the aging Chinese communist leader Mao Zedong. Here you see Nixon toasting Chinese Foreign Minister Zhou Enlai, and the other photograph, Nixon using chopsticks, which he practiced for weeks and weeks before making this visit, so he would be dexterous in using them. But this visit was highly successful. It had its stressful moments. It had its comic moments. Those things, any of you who are opera fans, if you ever see the opera Nixon in China, does a pretty good job of covering some of the details of what happened. But on the whole, it was an extremely successful visit and laid the groundwork for the establishment of an official diplomatic relationship with China, and that would be achieved under the presidency of Jimmy Carter in the late 1970s. So these are three of the significant foreign policy achievements of the Nixon administration.